It is Sunday, June 15th, and it's getting pretty late with Jake Landau. Happy Father's Day to all you folks listening in. This week we have got a special guest for you. I mean, it's always a special guest, but this one's a really special guest. I like him a fair bit. He is currently the Ontario reporter for PressProgress. He is a journalist based in Toronto. He has worked as a podcast host for Paris Marks on programs including Tech Won't Save Us and System Crash. And he's also done journalist work for The Hoser and a lot of other stuff. He's also a full stack developer. So again, man of many hats, and he's very good at most of them, all of them. It's my pleasure to introduce you folks to Eric Wickham. Eric, thank you for joining the program.
Jake, thank you so much for having me. This is a thrill. I'm excited that we got to do this. I know, the first time it was my fault. We messed up the scheduling. That was my fault.
I wasn't going to mention to the audience that you were supposed to be on a previous week, but thank you for owning up to it. You're a very honest man.
It's all about accountability.
Indeed.
I also have to say that I wasn't the host of Tech Won't Save Us. I was the producer.
Oh no, yeah, producer.
So
yeah.
Paris.
Yeah. I thought I said producer. My apologize.
No, I'm not here to, fact check you or anything. I'm sorry. This is a bad introduction on my part.
No, I mean, we appreciate fact checks on this program. We appreciate accuracy. we like laughs too. Like it's good times, good vibes. So, how are you doing, Eric? How's I know you got hired at PressProgress, I believe in January. How are those digs treating you?
Honestly, I love it so much. To get a full-time job in journalism, it kind of feels like I found a unicorn job.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous. I won't lie.
It's I had been freelancing for a long time, and I was editing their podcast, and I heard about this Ontario reporter job, and I just went all in on trying to get it. So I got the job January 27th, 28th. A few days in, the provincial election writ drops. And so it's like, okay, like I know you're getting your bearings, but you're going to be covering the election. And so that was great.
That's a way to hit
a lot
the
of
ground
fun,
running.
A lot of trial by fire.
Yeah,
no kidding. Like, it was just a lot of covering. Like, we did a lot of stories about policy and governance and things that, people were mad about the Ford government with, which clearly had a big impact on the election because man ran away with a majority again.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I really liked covering the provincial election. I thought.
Oh yeah, it's like it was very good coverage. It's like I'm a fan of PressProgress, and I won't lie, I did also look at that same job listing, but then I realized you were going for it, and I realized, you know what, I'm going to recognize the best option here. So
that's incredibly flattering.
No,
but honestly, never do that.
No,
apply for every job.
I know, but also you were already working with them, so.
Well, yeah. I can tell you, there's one journalist that I was talking to the other day who told me that I beat them out for this job, but then I went back to, their previous job when they started. It turns out I had applied for that job and I had interviewed for it, and they beat me out for that job. So you never really know if you are the best candidate.
Of when Conan O'Brien was appearing on a few years ago as a guest on Stephen Colbert's show on late night Late Show. I forgot which one. Anyways, and they were talking about how Colbert had applied for a job on Conan's show and he didn't get it. And obviously, it made for some good audience comedy, but also, obviously there's no hard feelings because they're both very successful men, who, were, I mean, Conan, invented a late night show for TBS pretty much. Well,
yeah,
I mean, George Lopez had a thing. My apologies to George Lopez.
This is George Lopez erasure. But I don't want to turn this into, the career advice thing for journalists, but I do think that, you never know if you're the right candidate until you apply and you talk to the people that are there. And luckily, everybody on the hiring panel were people that I had professional working relationships with, and they thought I was a good fit.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Yeah. It's just, I just specifically wanted you to get the job.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh my God, that's so flat. Thank you, Jake.
No, yeah. So
Seriously.
I didn't send a thing in. Like, yeah, but yeah,
Wow.
not to
That's
get too off
maybe the
base
nicest
here.
thing.
I do actually want to talk about your work and your reporting there because I did want you to get the job for a reason, like to do things.
It's genuinely the nicest thing I've ever heard on a podcast that I was being interviewed on.
I can be meaner if you want.
No, please don't. I handle meanness very poorly.
Uh,
A sensitive soul.
so you were hosting their podcast obviously for a fair bit before, and what have you done since the provincial election done obviously after things wrapped up and Doug Ford got his third majority and columnists tried to write about how he won't be too happy because it wasn't as big and beautiful as his Trumpian mind would desire?
Well, as soon as the provincial election wrapped up, which I thought our coverage was quite smart, and like we covered all these specific policy
I
issues,
agree.
how education's dealing with it, and
People
healthcare
didn't
and
vote
food.
based on it, but you did the right things. I blame the people.
You can never blame the people. I think there's
I mean, they
an
say you can
argument to be
never
made that
blame the people, but sometimes you can blame the people. Yeah. I have no
I
problem
do.
with Canada's ruling class. It is the Canadian people who are my enemy. Uh,
Interesting take. Yeah, I think maybe this is getting outside my realm of expertise, but maybe the Canadian public just didn't see a compelling alternative to the guy who was already in power, and given the uncertainty that the province and the nation was feeling at the time with all the
you're not
tariff
wrong.
threats,
I mean,
um,
I
they
know
just kind of went for him.
I've usually worked on liberal campaigns, but this was the first cycle where I just was completely disengaged and decided to commentate and write instead. And I feel
Yeah.
like that was the right decision.
Well, I think, a lot of people like I have to feel for people that were organizing for the Liberals, because they actually got quite a good share of the vote, but it just seemed so spread out that it didn't really make a whole impact
If
in the
only
end game,
there
right?
was
Like,
a different kind of voting system the liberals could have supported that might have like this is my thing. I've started to become more cynical in recent months where I've started to adopt a position of I won't help people who refuse to help themselves. Like I don't care about the plight of liberal backbenchers if they won't vote for the Reform Act. I won't care for the plight of liberal staffers if they won't unionize. It's stuff
mhm,
like that. It's like if you want my help, show that you want to help yourself. Like advocate for yourself,
right.
stand up for yourself, have a backbone. It's like you can't talk about how the prime minister is taking too much control over your caucus and then not have the one vote that will let you reassert control from him. Like, come on.
Right. Right. It is like a very interesting thing, and like I would defer to you on insider politics. I feel like you are much more into that world, but I really do think that there is something to like people being very open about what's wrong and then not actually doing anything
Yeah,
about it.
it's
Right.
it's like politicians will be like, "Here's the problem. If only there was someone who could fix this."
Right. Right. It's Trudeau walking in like a Black Lives Matter rally, and it's like, you're the prime minister.
I think
I
my
don't know if you
dad
know
made
this.
a joke that that might have been the first time a prime minister has ever protested himself. Yeah,
I feel like it was lost on him. I
yeah.
feel like,
Like I'm like,
Justin
here
really.
we're there, guy, homie. They're there because they're upset with you.
Yeah, yeah, it's like you're a lawmaker in this
Like
country.
you're the
You
one who
understand
wore
that, right?
blackface. Like,
Mm.
like they,
Oh my God,
you know,
yeah.
like, what are you doing at the anti-racism protest?
It's
I don't,
just, yeah,
yeah.
very interesting lack of self-awareness,
I
I
know.
guess.
I know you. I don't know if you're on Twitter anymore. I think you're mainly on Blue Sky. But recently, in the new Mario Kart game that came out, there was all the characters had these costumes, and there was like Luigi in this like stupid kind of Orientalist in a way that would make Edward Said upset, like Aladdin costume. And I just quote
Oh
tweeted
boy.
it, and I said Trudeau and his family on the India trip.
Oh my God.
And
Oh,
it's like exactly the vibe.
yeah. Well, yeah, like, so I don't know. We were talking about this before we started recording, but I did a post grad in web dev during the pandemic, like just like deep in the second wave. I'm like, forget it. I'm gonna go back to school. It's a great time for it. All my buddies that were international students and were on student visas from India, um, they all were aware of the Trudeau family on that trip, and they thought it was um yeah, I guess absurd is the right word,
Yeah,
but they were, like, completely dumbfounded by
it's
how
like I
ridiculous it
thought
was.
of it more as like innocent white racism. Like, and then the
Mm.
blackface stuff came out later, and I'm like, oh, he knew he was being weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's what an interesting legacy that he's left behind
Yeah.
and has never really fully addressed, you
Mind
know?
you, he's somehow also the best prime minister on reconciliation, and it's not close, and that says how low the bar is.
It's Canada. The bar gets lower every year, you know?
We're not America yet.
That's yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
God.
it's a good slogan.
Yeah. But I did also want to talk about the fact that you are like a full stack web developer, just because I think that's neat. Because I also I went to UFT in Toronto initially for computer science for my first year. I mean, technically I was at the Mississauga campus for my first year, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, I didn't have good enough grades to stay in the computer science program past the first year. So I switched over to political science, and now the Liberal Party is stuck with my ghost haunting them till the end of eternity. But I do still program actually, and I am fairly proud of my GitHub. I do have active projects I work on as a hobby there, because I do know how to code fairly well enough. I just never bothered doing it as a job.
Right. So what are you coding then?
Uh,
What's your
I
language?
I don't do much web development because I develop desktop applications. Uh,
Great.
yeah,
Great.
I am acting like the year is still 2002, and I am developing for a target of Windows 98, Windows 2000, and Windows XP.
So what are you writing in then? Like Java and doing like
C
C++?
sharp.
Like
I
C sharp, beautiful.
yeah, I'm a .NET enthusiast. I also think F sharp is slept on. Like, but I also I'm pretty prolific with Python as well. I use it for some like smaller scripting stuff. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, I think Python is like the perfect kind of like, oh, I need to do something quickly.
yeah.
And I'm not really worried about like memory usage.
Yeah,
I need a script
I
that'll
don't know
do
that I
this
would
thing.
build like a big web application in that, and that for like in fact like if you're doing web dev, then like ASP.NET is like fantastic.
Yeah, they taught us it in school and I was just like, this is a mess. Like I
It
was very
it depends what version they taught you, like because like
yeah,
ever since they moved to .core and it can run on Windows and Mac and Linux now, like it's just like a lot has changed like ever since .NET went fully open source and Microsoft just made their own flavor of Linux to run on Azure servers. Like
right.
at a certain point, I think they kind of expect you when you build like a server application to run it on Linux, and that
Yeah. Yeah. that-
yeah
It's like an industry standard,
yeah.
like it but I do think that like ASP.NET is like one of those things where there's always going to be jobs for it.
Oh
Like
yeah.
our program specifically taught it because there were people that recruited from the program
And that's the thing. I
specifically
do
for
know
ASP.NET.
that I probably like I've even had a friend who looked at my GitHub and said, "Do you want me to introduce you to somebody?" And the thing is, I know I probably could have a job in programming even without a degree in that. I also
Mm.
just know that I would have a lot less time to write about things, and I like writing. I like
This
I
is
like opinion writing. I like doing the radio. I like doing podcasting. I like talking about current events and saying what I feel about them. And I'm willing to make a lot
absolutely.
less money, yeah, I guess, in order to have the privilege of the time to do that stuff. A lot
I
less
mean,
money.
this is the thing, right? Like, and I had left journalism and I was in this web dev program, and then I started doing projects that were like scraping the National Post to check on how many
You
keywords I could
started
find
using it
in
as a
certain
tool.
columns. And yeah, I started using it as a tool. I got a job in software. I worked in software as a full stack developer. My boss used to call me a no stack developer. He was very hurtful. He's a funny guy, but like
I feel that.
I
Like
found myself
I
doing
use a lot
it.
of what I picked up like in my journalistic work too. It's like especially like being able to grab video footage like I
Hmm.
like and I've tried to teach other like colleagues like that stuff and they just look at like two command line prompts and then their eyes just glaze over.
Yeah, I think people think it's tougher than it
I
is,
know,
right? It's
and
just you're
it's
communicating
not.
with a
It's like
machine.
anyone can use YTDLP to like download like a news clip. Like it's really easy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, like, with journalism, I mean, I had left, I was working in software, and then I just kept finding myself taking on specific, like, small freelance things, and then I ended up, um, doing my own podcast where we were doing media criticism, RIP Big Shiny Takes, and from that, people started asking me to produce their podcasts, and then I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm never gonna leave journalism." Like, it's got its hooks in me, right? And I feel like you're in the same spot where it's like you're always going to be focused on the thing that matters to you,
Right. And it's
like
like I know a lot of
regardless of.
people who know how to code and are politically active, and what they just do is they work on the database software for these political parties because it's a niche industry and there's so few people with that crossover that like they can be pretty comfortable without having
Yeah,
to worry about anyone actually being able to judge the quality of their work. It's the joke they always
well, yeah,
make
no
like
one's.
you don't want to work in straight programming. You want to work as the programmer for a niche industry.
I think that's so true because I mean, when you were doing front end JavaScript for something, your code had to be so refined. It had to be so
I know it's
efficient.
why I could never
Everything had
get
to
into
work with
web
everything else.
development. It killed me. It's like with at least with desktop like GUI frameworks, I could actually make the user interface look the way I expect to look it. Like I don't have to worry about it looking different in Google and Chrome and Firefox. And then how will it work on mobile browsers? How will it adjust for different screen
Yeah.
size? Like there,
How can I get this past QA? Like how
yeah.
do I get this past the team that's going to review it?
I mean, that's the fun part of open source. You everyone who downloads it is quality assurance.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, that is terrible. Someone fix that right now. But I really do think people don't realize how specific and how wide use like every piece of code has to be if
Yeah,
it's on like an enterprise level of software. It's like, okay, this works for this specific issue. Can we use that everywhere else on every other screen on this application?
right.
No. Well, rewrite it then. Like we want this to be efficient. We don't want to have to write 12 functions for a thing that you can write in one. Sorry, I'm going a little deep
No,
on code stuff.
some people at home who are normally used to political talk, your eyes may be glazing over, but I understand all of this. So, skill, I mean, listen in, folks, learn things like we're learning.
Yeah, well, like, I really do think that I don't get this press progress job if I didn't have the coding background.
No,
I think that kinda
I
put
get
me
that
over the edge.
completely. There are political jobs I got because I had coding experience and I was able to do stuff with the database software. I honestly, my dream is like in my off time, I'm making a completely open source political database software. And then I just release it completely for free under the strongest like AGPL license. And then I just destroy an entire private industry because there's an open source completely free option, and every political party has to abandon what they use to use that.
Oh, that'd be so funny.
Oh,
It'd be so good too. I mean, like, more people should do that, like, disrupting it, but not for personal gain, but for, like undermining other people that
Yeah.
are profiting immensely.
And if people want to compensate it, they can pay for a $5.50 monthly subscription to my Substack.
Yeah, exactly. You have to read my columns.
Yeah. I'll explain to you what an integer is, folks. I'll take you step by step.
Oh, that's so good. Like,
Uh,
I really do think that's great. What would this political, software be doing specifically? Is this like a database for donors or what?
like basically just CRM, like a database for like voters and donors and voter contact. But just instead of it being one of these private things like either the one the Democrats use that the liberals use here, or the one that all the Republicans use that the NDP and conservatives kind of use here, like just an open
Mhm.
source one that nobody owns, that doesn't have any back doors in it from some weird American venture capital firm, that
Eh,
that you don't get charged an arm and a leg to use or restricted based on party for the campaign you're running. It's a basic piece of political campaign infrastructure, and I think anyone running a campaign should be able to access that kind of infrastructure. Like for the cost of
Absolutely.
having a
And, like, this
computer to
brings
run
me.
it on.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, this is the issue I have with engineering, like, or software engineering, is like a lot of people come into that world straight out of high school and they don't really have a worldview. They don't have like an opinion on how the world works.
Or
They
what their
don't have
code should be
a
used for.
field of
They have
expertise
dollar
of.
signs in their eyes.
Yes.
Eh, and
Yeah, and it's like
I
the
I get
difference.
that. Yeah.
Alright, you go.
Oh, so it's like part of the reason it's like
Uh,
why I believe in like such strong copyleft licenses like GPL, where if you make a modification, you have to share your work with everybody else. It's part of the same reason I'm a socialist in ideology. It's like they both stem from each other. I think that the way I use software like stems from that moral viewpoint of how we should share resources in an economy.
right, right, and so I really do believe that the best code comes from, people that, don't have a coding background per se, or they learn how to code later in life after they've worked somewhere or done something, or, have a passion outside of just the explicit engineering, so their code is for something. And so, I mean, this past federal election, I got to build something for PressProgress, and thank you to the team there for giving me the green light to do it. But I built a thing called the candidate story map, and now this is just me, bragging about myself. This is very job interview of me.
I
But
mean,
I
you're
I built
supposed to
this
brag. The
map.
entire point of me bringing journalists on this show is for them to brag about their work. Like, keep bragging.
Okay, okay, so here I go. So I built a map just out of an SVG of all the electoral districts, federally in Canada, and I realized that there was a lot of stories about MP candidates, in the Press Progress archives, that just people were not reading, just things about these MPs. I thought it was quite interesting that Polyev was kind of like running as a change candidate,
So you
although a
made
lot of his
something
MPs
that
were
would
like.
tag those stories based on the MPs' names to the writing on the map.
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote a function that would just pull up people that, I had specific writing IDs and I had
Right.
the candidate in there, and then it would pull the articles. So it would show, you know, stories and articles about past controversies or things that they were involved in.
And but it's simple,
And
but
then.
it's elegant. Like, and I see it exactly what you mean about how there's a lot of people who just don't know about programming and would think it's incredibly complex. But when you bring the two together, it's a very powerful thing you were able to do, despite not being that complicated under the hood.
Yeah, yeah, and, it took a little bit of while, like, took a bit of time to get the UX going, but then, as soon as I got all the stories on the page, I think, we only had about 70, writings out of the 343, and then we opened it up to people to suggest stories from other news
Hmm.
publications, and they just, with a Google form, so they're just sending us, articles, and I would go through it, and I think Steve Boots, the live streamer and TikToker, he picked it up and he shared it with his audience, and we got like hundreds of suggestions, and so we ended up getting, just shy of 90. I think it was like somewhere in the 80s 80 ridings of information about MP candidates in those specific
And when you
ridings. And
talked
I thought that was good.
earlier about in the provincial election about all the good work that PressProgress did, but about getting people to pay attention to it, like this is like an innovative way to actually get people to see stories relevant to them in their decision and also in their daily life.
Yeah. I feel like people don't pay attention enough to the candidates as well. Like we have like a little bit of the influence from the states where they really focus on the presidential candidate, and they were doing the same thing in this election. It was Polyev and Carney, and then to a lesser extent, Jagmeet Singh.
Unless it was
But
Polyev's
like,
riding, then it was Polyev and Bruce Vanjoy.
oh my God, that was quite a night actually. That was
that was very enjoyable. Yeah, Pierre Polyev has a podcast now too.
Oh, that'll be good.
Yeah,
what's it called?
It doesn't have a name yet. Yeah,
oh my God,
the Untitled Pierre Polyev podcast.
Yeah, how do you like them apples with Pierre Polyev?
Yeah. Folks, don't...
Sorry, it's a bad joke.
No worries. Folks, don't go anywhere. We will be back soon after the break with our 3 headline topics of the week. Today's episode of It's Getting Pretty Late with Jake Landau is brought to you by me. You see, folks, while all of my written articles and podcasts are available without a paywall, I need money to make them. Also, I need money to live. So, if you enjoy my content or find it informative, please consider an optional paid subscription at jakelandau.ca/subscribe. Thank you, and enjoy the show. And we are back from the break with our 3 headline topics of the week. And our first headline topic is, a light and fun topic, folks. Nothing terrible about this one at all. Prime Minister Mark Carney has invited to the G7, as you may know, Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, who is a Hindutva nationalist, which is the ideology of Hindu ethno-nationalism, and my thoughts on ethno-nationalism in general are bad. Now, this has been controversial, obviously, because of the murder of an individual, Mr. Nijar, by what the RCMP suspected and has presented evidence to the Trudeau government as a targeted assassination due to the individual's support for Sikh independence. Obviously, this created controversy. The Trudeau government expelled 6 diplomats, including the Indian High Commissioner, as persona non grata. However, the Mark Carney government is taking a different page on things and has invited Mr. Prime Minister Modi to this week's G7 as one of the many countries who are not part of the G7, but invited anyways. However, this has become more controversial after a few days ago when Global News in an exclusive revealed that another agent of Narendra Modi's government targeted and the former NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, and the RCMP placed him under police protection because that agent posed a credible threat to his life. Now, Eric, for your no prize question of the week for pointing out the obvious, is Canada a democracy if the Prime Minister welcomes with open arms foreign leaders who try to target his political rivals?
I mean, it's an interesting question. I don't know if I want to go on the record answering it.
I know it's like you don't want to go on the record as saying no, but Jesus fucking Christ.
What?
Like
if your own MP is calling it a bad idea,
yeah, it's like maybe. Yeah, like multiple Liberal MPs have gone on the record explicitly as calling it a bad idea, and they don't have the protection of the Reform Act. He could just remove them from the party anytime he wants. I mean, the entire Sikh community is outraged, but now all of the NDP are outraged too, but rightfully so, because again, Modi targeted for killing Jagmeet Singh, it is alleged, and Mark Carney doesn't think that's a problem. That's absurd. You cannot have in a democracy the leader of that country sanctioning foreign targeting of his opponents. That is completely unacceptable. That is, you can't have free and fair elections if you're letting other countries try and like get at your opponents.
Well, listen, we hear about foreign interference all the time, Russian foreign interference, Chinese foreign interference, and I'm sure on a certain level those do exist. Neither of those countries killed a person on Canadian soil.
That we know of.
Neither of those countries that we know of.
That we know of. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm not dialed in.
I take those threats seriously, but I think what bothers me is that we're not taking India's threat as seriously. Yeah.
I mean, they targeted a political leader because of his cultural background, and that is terrifying. And I mean, when this assassination took place in Canada, there was a lot of talk about there being consequences, and I mean, I'm still kind of waiting to see
like what
if
consequences
there will be consequences.
If anything, now the government has announced that there's going to be a deal between Canada and India for intelligence sharing. And
oh my goodness.
So they're going to be providing intelligence on terrorists and criminals. And I'm like, so seek Canadians, because because Narendra Modi and Hindutva nationalists think that every Sikh is a terrorist by virtue of being alive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that, I think, is incorrect.
Obviously, yes. I also
I'm saying some bold things on this.
Yeah, I also disagree with that if it was not made clear. But like, Christ, man, like I didn't have high standards for Mark Carney. I knew he wasn't going to be nearly as progressive as Trudeau was, or at least pretended to be. And it says something that Trudeau is considered more progressive in comparison. But like, God, like this is somehow even lower than what I expected. Like this is I feel like this is the vote I regret the most in my entire life.
Nice. No, well, I really do think that like it says a lot how shocked people are about this. Like people have been kind of just like, I didn't even expect this. Not in a million years.
And we're not even talking about like how he invited Mohammed bin Salman from Saudi Arabia. And like as people who work in the journalistic field, me on the more opinion side of things than you. But like, should we not have universal solidarity saying no to Mr. Bonesaw, who like literally butchered one of our colleagues?
Oh my God. Yeah. It's interesting to see what gets swept under the rug.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the Khashoggi thing, I say the Khashoggi thing,
yeah.
A journalist was murdered, specifically because of the work that he was doing. No consequences.
Yeah.
There's no consequences. And it
makes
you
wonder how we're going to practice the field here. Like if other countries are getting an increased license to engage in transnational repression.
Yeah, it's worrisome. I mean, journalists in general do not have a safe job. I was talking to one person I respect a ton at the CAJs, and they're talking about, the phone calls they get at 4 a.m. from specific people demanding to hear who their sources are. And it's just like, that's not super great. That's not a super fun thing. A lot of people get death threats. I
love my death threats.
Yeah, it's
like, sometimes I get more death threats than I get dollars in a week.
Exactly. And it's just like, come on. Like, even when I was working like local radio, I would get threatened. People would always threaten to sue me. And it's just like, okay, certain threats are, less than others, but this is a field where you're always kind of put in the spotlight in a not good way, where you are a target because you're saying specific things and you're criticizing things.
Yeah.
And we do need protections because I mean, things happen to journalists in countries with worse press freedoms, and I don't think they're getting better in Canada right now. I think things are getting worse, actually. So
I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people know where I live.
That's
not good.
Oh my God. That's not a good thing.
No, it's
Try not to
really
post
not.
about where I
But
live
like,
either.
I'm pretty sure the Kahanists in Toronto definitely know where I live.
It's just, like it's a little stressful, right? And Toronto's a big place. There's lots of people, and I don't know. Like I worry about that stuff sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I think if somebody kills me for my writing, it just means I wrote really well.
That's a really positive way of looking
No,
at it. I
yeah,
don't
it's
want to die.
no. I'm just gonna do an Obi-Wan. I'm becoming more powerful in death than I could possibly imagine.
Writing your Substack as a Force ghost.
Yeah. Well, technically,
That's
according to
beautiful.
Disney, they're Force spirits now.
Oh,
Force
that's
ghost is a
disappointing.
Legends term, and other things virgins say at night.
I'm gonna have to consult Wikipedia
Yeah.
about that. But
To be fair, Wikipedia is one of the best website names of all time.
it's so good. It's also like really well maintained. You can find out more about that than
Really
things
well
in
maintained,
Canadian government.
although I
It's
do have to criticize them over the breasts article because there was really no need for that to exist on the Star Wars wiki.
I'm sorry, could you unpack that a little bit? I don't know.
Okay.
For the folks at home that don't know what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
I don't know how we got to this topic, but on Wikipedia, the Star Wars wiki, at one point they had a page about breasts as part of the wiki. This doesn't really make much sense because this isn't really a Star Wars thing. Like, of course, the page will have something for droids or for lightsabers. Breasts, I don't know. But the worst part was they had a picture that wasn't even official art. It was just porn that somebody had drawn of a Star Wars character. So eventually,
Right.
feminists came along and thankfully cleaned it up. And now the breasts page just has a picture of Anakin Skywalker topless as an example of male breasts.
Oh,
Yeah. So
good.
feminism
That's
won.
a good edit.
Yeah, we brought feminism to the Star Wars wiki, which is good because ever since the Leia costume in Return of the Jedi, it hasn't been good.
And I'm sure like the avid Star Wars community that edits Wikipedia had like, completely normal takes about
Oh,
that change. Well,
of course, everyone
yeah.
was normal about it. All of these sweaty men in their basements, they couldn't possibly have been crazy over a thing that never even should have been there in the first place.
Just acting like it's a infringement on human rights that they got changed. But
I'm like, God, just there's no helping some people.
mm,
Yeah. Moving on to
sorry.
our next topic of the day, an actual news story, folks. They're in the ongoing dispute between Canada Post and the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. The government is making it mandatory for the union to vote on Canada Post's so-called final offer. The Minister of Jobs and Families, who is no longer the Minister of Labor because Mark Carney has demoted Labor to a Secretary of State position to show that it is contemptible to him, I think. The union's going to have a mandatory vote on it. The union is saying they just want binding arbitration. Canada Post is happy that the union is being forced to vote on it and saying binding arbitration would be too complicated. It's pretty clear that Canada Post and the government are kind of aligned here, and the government is not being an equal player in solving the dispute. But also, I don't think it's the government's place to step into labor disputes because they never step in on the side of the union. I think that the union should just strike for as long as they want until Canada Post gets the message. But Eric, what are your thoughts?
I got a lot of thoughts about this one. First of
You
all,
can have
I think
two.
people I can have 2? Okay,
I
that's
joke.
perfect.
I joke.
I have 2 thoughts on this. No. That's fine. Because like by the time I get to 3, it's gonna be like, well,
Yeah.
all right, Eric, you didn't fully
We
cook
know
that
how
one.
much I
But
interrupt. I'll probably jump in at 1.5.
okay, that works for me. First of all, I do think that this is one of those stories that people should be paying way more attention to. Things that are affecting workers, labor struggles affect all of us as workers. Emma Arkell, our labor reporter at Press Progress, has been covering this for a while. She's been doing a lot of great work. There's a lot of weird stuff going on with this specific labor dispute. I don't think Cup W is asking for too much in this. Believe that's the
I
union
don't
that
ever
that
think a
covers
union is
postal
asking
workers.
for too much. I think
Yeah,
unions are right in literally every demand they ever make, except for when the TTC union said that line 3 couldn't be automatic. They needed to change the trains to have manual drivers. That is the one time in my life I've disagreed with the union.
I really do think that we should all be worried about the way that Canada Post and the government is talking about the workers that make a piece of very
They
important
did
public
it to
infrastructure.
the plane workers, they did it to the train workers, they're doing it to the postal workers, they will do it to you too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like watching a labor struggle get crushed or at least be completely submarined, have its legs taken out from under it. Like this is it's concerning.
Yeah.
And I
And
say that
yeah.
as a worker, I'm obviously biased. I always want to see people get gains. Living in
Oh
Canada is
no,
very expensive
working class people being biased in favor of working class people.
right now.
Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
It's untenable, really. This is
yeah.
really putting my journalistic
But
integrity on the
mind you,
line
when,
here. So,
when like some millionaire writes a guest column in the Globe and Mail or the Post, no one can say you're only saying that because you're rich, because that's considered bad faith.
yeah, but it's not. I mean,
It's just
the
true.
group that has the yeah, the group that has the best class consciousness in this country are business owners.
Right. It's like
They're
people ask why like the Financial Times and the Economist talk so frankly about the war in Gaza, and it's very simply because the wealthy people want accurate news, not news with a slant.
absolutely. I mean, the point of those newspapers are are to give people a clear-eyed understanding of what's going on in the world because it's about their investments.
Right.
It's about like they need accurate information. It's about business and commerce.
Yeah. I mean, with this particular example here, I mean, Patty Hajdu is forcing them to vote on the offer, but they're going to vote no. Even though it might have been an offer a lot of them might have considered, being forced to vote on it will make more of them vote no. So I fully expect this offer to be voted down, and then they will go on strike. So then the question is, how many days will it take before Patty Hajdu then does a Section 107 and says they have to go back to work and that they're not allowed to strike?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
because
It's
we all
like
know it's coming,
I
because they do it every single fucking time. Like they did it since Stephen McKinnon was the Minister of Labor, like, and then Seamus O'Regan before him. Like it happens every fucking time.
I just, like I struggle or I hesitate to like really project what's going on here or hypothesize, but it really does not feel like this is in the best interests of the workers
Oh,
at
of course
Canada
not.
Post.
It's like
And
the
like
suggestions are to completely end home delivery and to own, but to keep daily delivery for businesses. But the Canadian
oh, of
people,
course.
like, and also it's all this shit like you'll read about privatizing Canada. I'm like, all the private parcel carriers need Canada Post to complete last mile in all these areas they don't find profitable to cover. So you're really just saying
Hmm.
cut off like a third of the country from all mail and parcel service, and that's absurd.
Right.
Like, this
Right.
cannot be a business operated for profit. It is a service we created for the basic integrity of the nation. Like, which
Yes.
means
And it's
we
connecting
don't
people.
ask where to find the money. We ask how much will it cost?
It is just a very simple piece of
Yeah.
like publicly owned
Right.
infrastructure that we should be trying to
And this is
protect.
what I hate.
Right.
We
And
ask the trains to make money. We ask like the only thing we don't ask to make money are roads. And maybe we should like I'm one of the people who thinks every road should be tolled. because like
Yeah, traffic zones, you know?
yeah, like it's like why should I have to pay a fare every time I take the bus or the subway, but people don't have to take a fare to use the public road?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so like if I do like that, like I generally think that we shouldn't be thinking about pieces of infrastructure as, their ROI. I think we should, or at least like a return on investment in terms of like money.
Yeah,
I think there's like an
it's a
issue with
return
like
on
neoliberal
investment of like
governments. Yeah.
improving people's lives, which is what the
Yeah,
government is there to do. But we have
right.
unfortunately elected Prime Minister Mucho Capitalist Grande. Well,
Yeah. Well, it's yet again another neoliberal government
I know.
that is
And it's like
thinking about
people were telling me with
governmentalism.
Carney that he's like, oh, his assets are in a blind trust, so you can't criticize him for acting in the best interest. And I'm like, well, no. If he's canceling the capital gains increase, that benefits him no matter what assets he's going to have in the blind trust. Like,
Yeah. Wasn't that like the first thing he
it was
announced?
literally
Like
the
when he was
first that and cutting the carbon tax. Like, and
Ugh.
I mean, my final thing is, and this is the one where I'm going to push on the union a little, and I'm going to push on other unions a little too, who have been put into similar vice by the federal government. Do they understand that even if the government Section 107s and forces them off the strike, they can just keep striking?
Yeah.
L-
Yeah,
l-
I'd
l-
like to see,
yeah, like
a strike be called illegal. I would like that once
like
in a while.
not to be speaking from a position of comfort and privilege, but I come from a
Yeah.
trade unionist and a socialist family. My namesake, my great grandfather, was a communist, and he would kind of laugh at the whole idea of, oh, we can't strike, the government said it's illegal. Once upon a time, the government tried to shoot people who went on strike, but then they went on strike anyways, and that's why the right to strike and the right to form a union under law even exists. At a certain point, you have to call the bluff, like, or the government will
Mhm.
keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a very cogent point.
Oh,
I
again,
also,
not to
like
speak from a
uh,
position of privilege to these people who work a lot harder than I do every day.
well, I that's the one thing
Yeah.
that I'm always,
I
worried
know, it's
about,
like it's easy
saying, like
for me to ask other people to make a sacrifice and do a hard thing. Like,
yeah, and to take a risk, and, like, I get it. These people, they're working to help feed their families and keep their head above water. It's hard enough to go on strike, people make a lot of sacrifices to fight for gains for, their colleagues, right? Like, it's tough, but also, like,
but you can't give
it
up.
would be cool if yeah, it would be cool if people broke the rules a little bit
Yeah.
more. That's a personal opinion.
Cheers to
This
that,
does not
brother.
reflect the views of yeah, you know,
Alrighty.
I don't wanna
No,
yeah.
I agree. Yeah. Workers of the world unite. Moving on to our final topic of the day, folks. And as you guys know, we like to do a local story for our third and final topic. Now, a few weeks previously, we did a story. I forget in exactly which episode, but we did a story about how a speed camera for issuing speeding tickets with photo radar in Toronto kept on getting vandalized and knocked
Yeah.
down like 3 or 4 times. And Olivia Chow was like, there's nothing to be done. We could put it out of the reach of human hands, but we don't want to. Like, but
That would be too much work,
yeah.
putting a fence around it.
And the general conclusion we came to on that episode was that if you don't want to pay for a speeding ticket, don't fucking speed. It's really easy. Just don't go over the speed limit and you will not pay a ticket. But you may be wondering,
Crazy.
this is relevant, folks, because we now have a new local story from the GTA on the same theme, but even worse. Here's the headline from the Toronto Star. That's a lot. Vaughan pumps the brakes on photo radar after a deluge of speeding tickets raises hackles. The city of Vaughan, led by Mayor Stephen Del Duca, formerly of the Ontario
Duke.
Liberal Party, What a fella. They've they the speeding tickets are handing out tickets for speeding, and so many people complained to the city government that they are now no longer going to be handing out tickets for speeding because the people breaking the law complained that they were being held accountable for their actions.
It is crazy, and this was like in a 40 zone, right? So
Yeah, like
I got a lot of thoughts about
no, I've
driving
been around
in
here.
this.
Like this, like there are tons of children here. This is absurd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I got a lot of thoughts about this. First one is Vaughan by far has the worst drivers in the
Yep.
GTA. This is a hot take. A lot of people talk to shit about Brampton. They're wrong and they're racist. It's Vaughan.
Yep.
Like I took the 427 from Bolton last night, and the amount of idiot kids and their dad's Audis like ripping
Yep.
through lanes
Uh,
and swerving and almost causing accidents is
the
ridiculous.
shit
I
heeled
went
children that I
north on the
went to school
427.
with growing up.
Yeah, yeah, it's like it's I mean, I don't wanna accuse affluenza, of causing these bad drivers. I'm sure there's plenty of people that drive their dad's Audis safely, but it's like it's always a BMW, it's always an Audi.
No,
It's just it's so dangerous.
I know. It's like people, people say, "Oh, poor people do it too." I'm like, no, but if you're actually poor, you don't have a car.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah, it's like
like there seems to be this massive misunderstanding by the upper middle class, and middle class people fall into the trap of getting a car when maybe it's not the best idea to get a car. But like working class people know they cannot afford a car, like not even a used car, because the used car will have so much maintenance that piles up. Like, and they can't afford gas either. It's like, so part of the privilege of time is that you're on slower public transit that shouldn't be slower. I'm happy to live in a part of Toronto where I'm near the subway, so it's pretty speedy actually. But if you're like out west or east in Etobicoke or Scarborough, like you're getting maybe a bus every 40 minutes, or if you're in one of the GTA like suburbs, then you're also getting screwed by your city because it's suburban car hell. Like
mm, yeah, you're stuck.
so you pay in time. You lose
Yeah,
time going to work. You use time getting home from work. You go places less that aren't work or home. Like it,
mm.
I am resentful of the dominion that the automobile has over the Canadian way of life.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we organize our lives around it. I grew up in the suburbs of Toronto, in Mississauga, Ontario. Dear God, help us all. And that's where I'm recording this right now, at my folks' place. But it is one of those cities where if you don't have a car, the minimum amount of time you're walking to anything is like 35
I
minutes.
know
You're walking 30
it's
minutes
like I
there, 30
would
minutes
when I
back.
was at UTM my first year. I would take the bus
Mm,
from campus to to Square One, and thankfully at least that bus came every 15 minutes, which honestly isn't that bad for Mississauga. Like, but
right.
the problem is that like at Square One, the bus terminal was just so far from the actual mall. And it was
Yeah.
so far from the Cineplex.
Yeah.
Like, you know exactly. Anyone who's been to Square One knows what I mean. Like, if you're going to that Go or, and also the Go Bus terminal is just on the street itself, and you have to cross at a crosswalk to connect to a bus on the other side, and cross another crosswalk to get to the Mississauga buses. And also, at one point, they had separate, like, blue and orange express and local buses, but now they've just merged the colors because they didn't want to paint two different kinds of buses. I don't know.
Of
Like,
course.
and I know we've gotten a bit off the main topic here of like the photo
Right.
radar and the speeding, and it's just. Could you imagine like any other crime where you just went to the politicians and said, "Hey, I'm getting too many like tickets or jail sentences for breaking this law. You need to make it legal." Like
Yeah.
it's
Well, you said it before, right? Like you sped, you broke the rules, deal with it.
yeah,
That's in my notes
yeah.
for this episode.
It's it
Like I've listen, sorry, I like as a 20 something year old, I ran a red light. I got hit with a red light camera. I got fined a couple $100 for it. Okay, you got me. I was deterred from doing that. You know what I mean? On a late yellow, I'll break now. It's like this is unfortunately the most dangerous thing we do in our lives on average
And it
is
doesn't
dropping
have to be.
daily.
Like
Yeah,
it's because we choose to prioritize. It's because we create these wide stroads where like you have to have like a 40-second crosswalk because you're walking across 8 lanes of traffic. It's absurd.
it's ridiculous. And I drive. I'm a driver. I understand. I'm kind of a class traitor right now talking about cars like this. But like the safest
We'll
place that
string
I
you up
drive
when the
is
revolution
yeah.
comes.
Thank
Yeah,
thank you
kid.
for being honest about that. But
We'll be gentle.
but let's say I appreciate that. Yeah, use like soft rope, you know.
Velvet.
But like thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. The safest place I drive is downtown, and it's because of all the extra things going on, because of the cyclists, because of the electric scooters,
Because it slows
because,
everything
we're going
down.
30. Yeah, you have to pay attention. You know, like you cannot just be going 90 in a 50 because you'll kill someone.
I th-
And you don't want to do that because you live in a society, you know?
I think the worst. This wasn't a Canadian story, but I forget the state it happened in the other week. There was an 11-year-old boy and a 7-year-old boy, and they were crossing the road. They were walking just like a quarter mile from their parents' house just to go get something. Like, which should be a normal thing for kids to do. And in our parents' time, it was a normal thing for kids to do. And they got hit by a car running a red light, and one of the kids died. And the
Oh my
police
God.
not only did not charge the driver, they've charged the parents.
Of course. Of
Yeah.
course.
And,
'Cause it couldn't be the guy driving the death mobile,
yeah,
like
who gunned it? Like, and like this is what really enrages me. It's like it isn't even a joke anymore when I say it. If you want to murder somebody, do it with your car, and at worst case, you'll be in jail for 5 years, and probably not even
yeah,
that.
it'll be like a
Yeah,
criminal negligence causing death
I mean, look what
is what you'll
happened
get hit with.
with like what Marco Muzzy did to that poor family.
Mutso?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Muzo.
Yeah.
Yeah, It-
That was wild.
and now his
Absolutely
family's
wild. And
name is on the fucking hospital that overlooks Canada's Wonderland.
is it the oh, are you referring to the Neville Lake family or the Mutso family?
No, the Muzzo family.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, like his grandfather was like this mega developer, wasn't he? Like he built a good chunk
yeah.
of the West
Well, that
GTA.
was a part of it. Like people saw wealth caught letting him get away with something, and it's enraging. Like
Yeah.
I'm out of jokes. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing I can do other than say this makes me really fucking mad.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see the influence of automobiles on literally everything that we do in terms of transportation in this province, in the city of Toronto, and in the nation generally. And a lot of people are stuck using their cars.
Yeah.
I grew up in the suburbs. I understand that. I have a car. I live downtown now. I don't really need a car. I use it to see my family. It is old and rusty. It's kind of a piece of shit, but we're hanging on to it until it becomes too expensive to actually deal with.
Well,
But like it is one of those things where the bike lanes being put in and pulled out, despite it taking like over a decade to actually have cycling infrastructure in the city that was usable, um, is just another instance of cars impacting our lives
and
because people are
and
like, "This is gonna slow me
that's what
down."
really pisses me off. They're like, we know it saves lives, we don't care. My right to be faster in my car is more important than their right to be alive.
Yeah, I gotta get home and watch the Jays game,
Yeah,
and it's like, you don't.
no,
You don't. Live closer to work,
leave earlier.
You're driving in your Range
Yeah,
Rover.
like it's just there, and I mean, what is to be done? Like when the voters themselves create these pressures on politicians to not care about human life, like of course I would like politicians to do the right thing and be leaders rather than followers. Let me know when you see one of those this side of the border.
Well, it is very interesting to see, like, the angry voices defending cars. Like, have you seen the Save Bathurst stuff going
I
on right
have,
now
and
in Toronto?
that's really pissing me off that Diane Sachs is saying, okay, maybe we shouldn't do it on this big part. And I'm like, we literally proved it was an AI campaign with a fake person.
That would work on that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, she's an interesting candidate. I always thought she'd be like more on the cycle side of things, just because of
Greens
her past
always
history in
find
the
a way to
party. But
disappoint you. Tories on bicycles.
yeah, it's so interesting. It really is. You'd think, being a Tory on a bike would actually help in this situation, but nope.
No.
Um,
I mean, Olivia
it's
Chow
been
rides
interesting. Like,
bicycles to City Hall, and she's literally talked about being maimed by a car door, and she still didn't put up a fight against Doug Ford. So if she won't care about her own safety, why would she care about ours?
it's this wild thing. What is it? It was $27 million to put in the bike lanes that they're tearing out for $48 million,
Uh,
and
it,
all I see is money that could be going to services that, yeah, I mean, the city so desperately needs to fund better.
we may as
But
well replace
I'm
the
just a
oil we
reporter.
burn for home heating and natural gas with just the money.
Yeah,
Just burn the
yeah.
money.
Just just burn the money,
It would
like
help.
I thinking
It
about.
would increase the value of the
Sorry.
currency.
Get some of it out of circulation. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really do think that, there's a lot of ideologically driven decisions being made on the political level right now, and that is going against what experts are saying.
You're telling me
And I think one of those things.
politicians are motivated by ideology?
Yeah, I mean, give me the no prize for that.
Yeah.
I think there's not a lot of fact-based decision making going on, and it's very interesting seeing it. I mean, you can see it with Bill 6. I did some reporting on that about a month ago on, it's the Safer Municipalities Act, where they're making it a lot easier to trespass people and arrest people on the suspicion of them using drugs in a park or being in a tent in a park, and then charging these people who are living in the park maximum fines up to like $10,000, which,
Yeah.
homeless people have
Yeah.
always. They just have it in their back pocket.
We hate homeless people and we want them to die as a country, pretty much.
Absolutely. And I mean,
I mean, not
it
us.
really is like one of those. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No.
Absolutely. Yeah, I wish I didn't say that. But like this is what these policies are, right? Like it's not actually addressing the problem, which is there's someone in the park living in a tent. It's I can see this person living in a park. They're going to make it easier to trespass people, and
I
they're going to
mean,
end up
that's the
moving
thing. The
away.
rising
And
values of homes kind of relies upon people not being able to get one.
right,
Yeah.
right. And I mean, they're trying to. I know. Listen, I
Yeah.
can't. I'm not going to say it like that. I do believe that this approach to people living in the park to invisibilize the thing, attacking the symptom rather than the actual issue, which is the rising rates of homelessness across the entire province, um, is just going to make the problem worse. Is going to make people more desperate,
Because
right?
we
Like
can't get rid
that.
of it
Like
because it enables our society.
it is. It is a very sad thing to
You know
see,
the short
right? There's
story, The Ones Who Walk Away from Amalas, where they find that the whole utopian civilization is powered by the suffering and torture of a single child, so they leave. And I'm like, it's cute that in this universe it's only powered by the suffering of one child.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
We
it
have a
is.
bit
It
more
is.
suffering.
I mean, it makes me sad that it's easier for people to look away, right? Like you can't if you live downtown.
Yeah.
You can't.
You see it everywhere.
And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, everywhere. On my street, like it's very, very sad that we can't
I mean, you see it
even
uptown
look
now
people in the
too.
eye.
Like in the park near my house, like you can see people. Like I don't bother them. Like they're just trying to get by day to day. Like they're doing their thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, there's some opinions in the neighborhood that I just, like, well, they can't live here. It's like, well, I don't think this was their first choice.
Yeah.
I think we should probably look into why they've had to come here. But I don't know. I'm just a member of the woke liberal media, right? So like, no one needs to listen to me about this.
Well,
I'm just a guy.
I would rather be awake than asleep. Uh, Eric, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining the program today, and hopefully we'll have you back again soon.
Yeah, well, Jake, thanks for having me. I had a blast.
And that'll do it for this week's episode. Thanks again to Eric Wickham for joining the program. You can find his work at PressProgress as the Ontario reporter, and also doing a lot of data work and also doing some podcast stuff. And, he does a lot of work, and that's why I like him. Next week, we will have a returning guest for you, but as always, we don't announce the guest until the show starts because, as Eric so helpfully demonstrated, sometimes people don't make the show. And credit to Eric for being the first person to admit to it on a recording. Cheers, everybody. Have a good night. This is the end of the show. Bye.